So today I'm talking a little bit about in the healing stage, when we can revisit that which, and that which wasn't in alignment, and how that is the only way to release these blocked kind of flows in the body, in the mind, in the heart, for the sake of being in a meditative state more often. This is the opposite of using drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, because those repress or isolate the feelings and they cannot flow. And trusting the Creator means trusting the feelings that flow. So I revisited a painful memory where I felt real unfairness. The push to be truly heard by my father required me to do and say specific things because it was a basic need. And I did what I had to fulfill the requirement. So I wanted to be heard by my father, not because I did or said specific things, but because I needed to be heard and seen or noticed. And what I really needed for him to know was how difficult it already was. And to reassure me so he wouldn't punish me. Now, what is this memory I'm speaking about? I would get locked in my room. There was a lock on the outside of the room, not inside. And there was also a lot where I would get locked in the bathroom, and there was this big chute to the basement, which I really didn't like very much. It was a little scary for me. So my anger and fear reactions to his being aggressive just made him more dominating, and I felt even more disembodied. So how do we really feel brave enough to face this stuff? And doesn't it sound like I'm just complaining? So the next step is really, what did I need? What did the information give me? And it showed me that I needed to be given benefit of the doubt, which is innocent until proven guilty. I needed my parents and my caretakers to be curious without assuming my intentions. And the reason we do this is we see that that's what my parents needed. That's what my friends need. Yesterday I had a big issue with somebody. That's what he needed. He needed exactly that. And if I'm taking responsibility for myself, I'm able to see my needs, right? So I can't even assume my own intentions. I have to be curious about my intentions. I also needed not have to lose my innate schedule, instead objectifying myself with pace and rate to accommodate someone else's wishes. This is a big one. Just feeling a sense of sovereignty that I can spend the time that I'm given how I feel I'm supposed to, not necessarily how others would like or dictate. I needed quality time where my feelings mattered. That's simple. I needed warmth, kind words, feeling attended to, and guidance, security, safety. I didn't get that much, if at all. I needed verbal acknowledgement that I mattered. It's like sending these memories in. That I matter, that I'm doing a good job. I needed to feel included and like I belong, even if I'm different. I needed to be able to express my feelings and get things off my chest without someone taking it so personally or attacking. And we bring in the higher self, the more whole one. And this is true only if you've been practicing, because if you can't access these emotions and the higher self or the inner parent or the inner godliness that doesn't see the separation, that is outside of time and space, like if you could access this part of yourself or these parts of yourself, then you have the strength and the foundation to release these very difficult emotions where you feel like you're dying or breaking apart. And I'm going to give an example of one way that I've done it, which is tapping, but I'm also going to, and I bring in tapping sometimes because I'm actively in a course. We have a few more sessions, but I do many other things. So, and I'm open to many other things, and I'm going to try many other things. So I'll at the end, I'll have a short list as a gift. But I'm going to continue with the higher self. The higher self creatively speaks. It knows that its words have effect, now or later. The higher self trusts organically. It has a discernment base. So either it trusts self or outside. It doesn't always trust outside or always inside. It doesn't always trust other people's words or always their actions. It doesn't have that. It trusts organically. It's logged to trust. So it trusts appropriately. It doesn't always trust as a rule and then make many mistakes. I'll always trust my family, or I'll always trust my boyfriend, or I'll always trust my neighbors. So always wise, though, because it's constantly conscious, even during suffering. To stay conscious during suffering is to gain wisdom. And that's all I can offer here, is that staying conscious during the suffering, not, going unconscious as best as we can. It means the higher self we can access all wisdom through the higher self of the body, mind, heart, spirit. My higher self is fully able to bless all with a loving presence. How is that possible? Because it does for the sake of loving. It knows that bringing more love in the world brings more love. So it says, okay, you want to embarrass me here. I know that your dignity will be taken from you at some point, so I can love you now. I'm sorry that you're acting this way because you're only setting yourself up to be miserable. It's okay, you're doing it to me, and right now I recognize as the higher self that, I'm able to be unaffected. What you're saying about me is right now, and whether it's criticism I need to hear or not, it's like, I can still bless you for being brave, for speaking up. I see you're trying. Like, from that place, the higher self is here now, and it talks that way to us, and then we can extend that to others, even in just our demeanor. We don't even have to say anything. We can be a loving presence without, a picture is 1,000 words. You could convey more with your eyes, with your facial expression, sometimes than you can with, talking with words. So my higher self always sparkles and shines like a golden beam. And that's a way of accessing a visual for the sense of the dirtiness, the being in very body consciousness. Getting a shimmering light body and visualizing it really does help to realize that, it really helps to realize the sense of not being the crude substantial world. It is being of and in the crude substantial world, but not being that. And it encourages me to be patient because it knows, because it's going to get better. Everything that happens is for the greatest good, and to trust the core during change. My core self is good. Trust myself. Even when I feel regret, shame, guilt, my higher self trusts myself. It knows it's okay. You might be having collective or someone else's, and it might be stored up from a previous time. And it also knows everything's a reflection. Everything's connected. It knows it says believe in the synchronicities. There's divine timing, and it reminds me how to take less responsibility for others and take more responsibility for myself. My higher self is able to respond and not react to situations. It has that built-in program for being open to everything, whether I am ready for it or not. The program is available whenever we reach that point to become one. It has the program for unity, for oneness inside. And finally, it knows that the new me is always going to be okay, and I'll attract who and what and where I need, no matter what the change in the fear is. So I'm going to give an example of how do we process difficult emotions. For example, grief and loss. For me, grief and loss comes up the most in this group that I'm in. We think of a moment. We don't go to the whole thing. We think of the portal to the feeling, which is a moment where we remember. For me, it's when I stop feeling safe with the person. And I mentioned in a previous video yesterday about how things escalated to the point of no return. But I remember the time where that started. Now, even if he's in my life or not, the relationship became unsafe. There's a lot of new borders and boundaries and, acres in between that need to be established in order for things to be, copacetic or kosher. So when I stopped feeling safe with this person is when I think of the memory, I thought, it sounds stupid, but there was a small time he bit my finger. There was a little blood. I called the police. I didn't know if it was, I was being a baby about it, really. I just needed him to take care of me, but I called the police. It was over a year ago. I was so wound up in the moment, and I was, I'm able to apply this knowledge to even yesterday when I had to do this, because it was much worse. When this person punched me, and the last time he bit me, very little. But I had called the police and freaked out and was screaming when he did that because it stopped feeling safe. And she helped me to get into the moment. Why did that moment? Why did I call the police? Why did I feel so unsafe? I kept screaming. And it was because in that moment I realized our love was not strong enough for us to be kind and patient with each other and respect each other's needs, including space. And including for space. And time and independence. And this went both ways. I couldn't calm down, he couldn't calm down. I couldn't be understanding, he couldn't be understanding. And so we tapped about this. There was a sense of regret over me freaking out, not being safe, him freaking out, not being safe, and how everything after that kind of escalated worse and worse. And out of 1 to 10, I was feeling that regret at a 9, and it was in my solar plexus, it was in the sides of my neck. That's where my body had been holding it. It was not in my solar plexus. It was in my low back, my core, my root, and in my sides of my neck. And after a round of tapping, it went down a couple to 7. Another round, it went up to 5. So that showed me that regret, as I tapped through, regret was able to integrate, and then I was able to be a changed person because of the regret. But I don't know yet in what way, but I was able to be more oneness. It wasn't separate. There wasn't regret that I was avoiding feeling. That even little bits of regret would touch these areas, and I would say, it's overwhelming. Once we tap through or meditate through, or I'll give some pre-meditations, I'm going to say once we meditation as oneness, for oneness, all these kinds of things are the meditation practice, but then the oneness is possible. So, and then under the regret, I looked and I saw helplessness in my stomach and solar plexus. And I felt helpless because it was the first time I saw his face that usually was filled with love, even when he was able to communicate. One time we had a big argument before that, and I was praying to God, and I was so confused. He looked like very sick to me in that moment. I saw his sickness, and he said, "You're pushing me away." And there was a few times that I've talked to him about that came up, but that was the first time close up I saw his face. It looked like so much hate. So this helplessness, which was like a powerless helplessness, I went through, and it was at a 7, and it went to a 4 after a round of tapping. And why? I was able to see it was because from helplessness to powerlessness, it went from my stomach, solar plexus area, it was in the, that's where it was coming from. And it was because he didn't stop. I asked him to stop being so loud and aggressive, and he didn't stop, and that's what made me feel unsafe, and that's why he started feeling hate, and that's why things escalated. And so look how powerful. I don't have to go through, and maybe I do, but I don't have to go through the unconscious behavior. The wisdom is here for me. After another round of tapping, from 4, it went to 2.5 out of 10. We rate this so that it makes it easy.